pretty interesting. I was over at Shaking My Head Productions, and he has several channels. And he's also another one of my favorite go-to channels that I consult all the time. And he's really good about taking all the pertinent videos on a topic from many YouTubers that he likes and then putting it all together in one usually fairly long video, although this one wasn't too bad. So anyhow, this particular one was about WikiLeaks and Q are digital disinfo agents. And so it was primarily about that, but you have to know that it's not just relegated to that. There's all kinds of people within the media and within YouTube as well who are also disinformation agents. And then there could be people that aren't necessarily disinformation agents, but they're picking up headlines that have been written that are disinformation agents. So, having said all that, let's go over what this says. It's for a whole bunch of different things as far as how I'm looking at it in my video, and then I want to share with you from there. You'll follow what I'm saying in just a second here. It says disinformation is defined as misinformation that is deliberately disseminated in order to influence or confuse rivals. Who's the rival? You and I are the rival. Government, Masons versus the people. Okay. It is used by governments to mislead and brainwash their citizen populations, instigate wars, and blackmail foreign regimes, and probably much more. It is the ultimate instrument of media. The most effective disinformation is that which is, now look, is compromised of falsehoods as well as facts. WikiLeaks, founded by Julian Assange, fits this description perfectly, right down to the letter. But again, he's not the only one. Seemingly overnight, it has become one of the biggest whistleblowing agencies in modern history. In reality, though, it's one of the biggest disinformation projects in modern history, and it may be one of the most dangerous because it's masquerading as an organization of truth. The information released by WikiLeaks isn't new. It isn't groundbreaking. It doesn't hurt the U.S. as much as people think. It's fractional, really, and it's overloaded with as much as propaganda as the day-to-day Zionist media is. This propaganda is benefiting someone, and that someone is the illegally, well, I don't like exactly how they phrase this, but I will put it this way. Unbelieving Jews in Israel. Believing Jews in Jesus Christ, I don't have an issue with. They're our family. But for those in the government of Israel who are unbelieving Jews into Kabbalah, sorry, I can't talk today for some reason, into Kabbalah and other things, that is who is benefiting by all of this disinformation. And it also benefits people in the government like Trump, who is being touted to be a Christian and a anti-globalist, but none of that is true.
Used by governments to mislead and
Hold on just a second here. So what this talks a lot about is, the backdrop of Big Brother, watching the backdrop of Big Brother, as if you're familiar with the 1984 Ministry of Truth. That's what I'm talking about. We have a real life one now, and they churn out whatever types of info they want to. See? And it's about flipping everything on its head or mixing lies and truth, right? So the 2 + 2 = 5 concept. It doesn't matter whether it is the truth. It only matters that they want you to believe that it's the truth so they can do whatever it is that they choose to. So, I mean, you could get into a lot of good YouTube videos. You could get into a lot of information. So with this stuff is kind of the backdrop of where this video is heading. Big Brother's watching you. And really, truly, it is through the surveillance. I was pretty interested with this story that Dave Hodges brought up. And I don't know if Dave Hodges is also a disinformationist. I don't know. Or if he's just really that naive and he is taking information from the media who is disinformationists, who are, and spreading it. But the story was why the Hamptons are going underground. And anytime I hear about the wealthy going underground, the reasoning why doesn't seem to make sense with what they're saying, which the reason they're giving is because they're Trump supporters. And here is the story from the NewYorkPost.com. We're all in the closet, Trump supporters, and they're going underground. They're going to go hide. And I don't know, do they just mean metaphorically hide? Or do they like literally mean we're going under the earth? Because, and we'll just skim this, because I try to not get into the political garbage that I can't stand, because I don't like to be manipulated. But even if it's just a metaphorical, like we don't want to, let anybody know that we're Trump supporters because we're going to get beat up or whatever, my mind always goes to the intelligence given to us by the Bible. And I'm also thinking about the Forbes billionaires bunkers in places like New Zealand, the shocking doomsday maps of the world and the billionaire bunkers. And they've been doing this for a long time, wanting to literally go underground, literally. And the Bible actually says in at least 2 books that that's in fact exactly what they're going to do. So I don't get into this whole nonsense that they're putting forth saying it's because they're Trump supporters. And you could find a ton of articles on this, and I highly recommend that you do. I also don't believe in global warming. I believe that's all a lie too, but I do believe that they are using Lockheed Martin type of equipment to seed the weather with whatever they want to, and then calling that global warming. So I'm just kind of skimming this a little bit here. I have no respect for Edward Cayce or any type of New Agers, but they're definitely changing the landscape of the earth to fit with their model of what they want to force humanity to deal with. And you can see it here in Revelation 6:5. So again, I don't really care what the New York Post is writing and saying that they're, afraid and don't want to be Trump supporters. I could care less about that. This Revelation 6:15 is what I think is truly what the people are actually preparing for. See here, it says in 6:15, and the kings of the earth and the great men and the rich men and the chief captains and the mighty men and every bondman that's a slave and every free man hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains. And this is the 6th seal that's being peeled off and opened. And then in verse 16, it says, and said to the mountains and the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. It's funny because I'll hear people talk about how the tribulation and the wrath are not the same. They're not the same. The wrath is the bulls. But this kind of breaks that thinking apart and challenges that really ridiculous idea, because you're seeing people right here in the beginning of this. This is at the 6th seal of 21 judgments, where they're acknowledging there is wrath. who it's coming from, the lamb, and they're hiding from him because they're afraid. So something is going on in the atmosphere around them that they want to be protected from, whatever that is, and the disease elements that have been produced back there in that fourth seal, if you know your seals real well, and the famine in the third seal, the war in the second seal, going backwards, and the Antichrist in the first seal. The fifth seal, I'm doing this out of order, is the beheadings, Noahide. All these things are being set up and coming, is what I'm saying. And so when they put these stupid little reports in the news, and then people put them out to the rest of us, and then we all parrot it, they're lies. And this is the actual truth that's going on right here. And it's not just said in the New Testament, which there's a whole movement of people to want to change that and cause Christians and Jesus and the New Testament to just evaporate and eliminate us, which is that unbelieving Israel, the leadership, i.e., through the rabbis. So this verse is 17, and it says, "For the great day of his wrath is come, and who should be able to stand?" Now, I don't know if all these seals have a kickoff day time on Yom Hadin, and then one fourth of the earth is killed as things are moving along, or if truly, like prophecy teachers have said, seal 1, and then a little bit later seal 2, and then a little bit later seal 3. I'm not exactly sure as to how that unfolds, except that wrath is coming. It's from the Lamb. And in Gnosticism, they flip everything and they say, well, Yahweh is the demiurge and he's the bad one. And Lucifer's come to help us. And Lucifer has this Messiah that's coming that's not Jesus, and he's going to help us. But they certainly, so that's the lie that they put out. And that's coming. All that's coming. There's definitely wrath right there from the beginning. Some other things happen, but that's not the only place where it talks about it. In fact, in Isaiah 2, you know what, let's go to 2:10, because it's talked about in 2:10 as well. Let's go there for a second. Oops, sorry. So this was written, what, I think 700 years before Jesus came to the earth through Mary. And it says here in 2:10, it says, "Enter into the rock and hide thee in the dust for fear of the Lord and for the glory of his majesty." So it's kind of hard to assess, is that happening on Yom Hadin? It almost feels like it is. It almost feels like the seals are all going to peel off and have a start point on one day. I'm still studying that. I'm still checking into that. I'm not certain, but this is a possibility for how it unfolds. It says here that this is in verse 11 now, "The lofty looks of man shall be humbled, and the haughtiness of man shall be bowed down, and the Lord alone shall be exalted in that day." So there's a beginning of the end, a middle of the end, and an end of the end. This feels like it's more in the beginning than anywhere else. It says, "For the day of the Lord." See, you always have that day of the Lord thing, and it's an opening. It is the time of Jacob's trouble. It's very Yom Hadin. It's very day of judgment, which kicks this whole thing off. It's a feast day as well, and then it lasts 7 years. And it also feels like from other scriptures, there's a potential that the day of the Lord is like an end cap to it, a beginning and an end, and everything in between. So then it's just a bit of a challenge to figure out where things go exactly. It says, "For the day of the Lord of hosts shall be upon everyone that is proud and lofty, upon everyone that is lifted up, and he shall be brought low." So I do like that John, through the Holy Spirit, is quoting from our prophet Isaiah. Then it goes into all this imagery of trees being cut down, and trees in the Bible are a symbol for mankind. And being cut down is a consequence of rejecting the Messiah. It's not a good thing. And it's not reserved for the sons of God. It's reserved for those who do not love the Lord, right? All the towering mountains, all the high hills, every lofty tower, a lot going on. So yeah, verse 17, he talks about why to humble man. And then in 19, he says, they shall go in the holes of the rocks and the caves of the earth for the fear of the Lord and for the glory of his majesty when he arises to shake terribly the earth. Something's coming to shake the earth.